Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight. My name is Heath, and I am talking to Nick Nugent, the author of the Knight Rider Companion, the abridged edition. You got to tell us what the abridged, I know there's an explanation here, but I want you to talk about it. Nick, welcome to Serial at Midnight. How are you doing?
Good to be here,
everybody. So why Knight Rider? We were talking a little bit before we started recording, and we're both close to the same age, and we grew up in like this golden age of like cool stuff. We had A-Team, we had what did you say, Street Hawk? Is that what you said?
Yep.
We had Airwolf, we had all this cool stuff, but Knight Rider, there was something about Knight Rider. What was it about it that you latched onto so much so? I mean, you've spent years of your life now on Knight Rider. What is it about Knight Rider?
Well, most fans will say it's about the car. It's about the Knight 2000, which was an 82 Trans Am built to resemble Pontiac that was protected by a special indestructible alloy called the molecular bonded shell, which allowed it to crash through walls, repel gunfire, and leap at the push of a button called turbo boost. Now, we had jumping cars back in the day with Dukes of Hazzard and these sort of things, but you never had a supercar that could jump at the push of a button to get over obstacles and other dangers in the way. What set Knight Rider apart is that, first of all, the car was cool. It tapped into that fantasy of James Bond era gadget cars, all these buttons on the steering wheel, do different things like ski mode, make the car drive on two wheels, or fire a grappling hook, repel gunfire, jam car engines with this thing called micro jam. You had this dashing hero, Michael Knight, played by David Hasselhoff, who came from The Young and the Restless. His charisma helped propel the show along with the car. So the car wasn't just a vehicle. It wasn't just the Knight 2000. It was governed by an artificial intelligence called K.I.T.T, or the Knight Industries 2000, voiced by William Daniels from St. Elsewhere. And the magic that David had is he was able to interact with the car and make it feel like a character. So if William Daniels was the heart of the vehicle, then the car itself was his costume. So K.I.T.T became a character, not just a vehicle. It taps into that buddy cop show thing that used to be very popular back in the 80s, the detective stories, and, you know, the kind of awkward team up buddy cop genre. In this case, it was Glen wanted to make a modern version of the Lone Ranger. So he teamed up Michael Knight with a smart aleck kind of prissy car that was controlled by the artificial intelligence. Could drive by itself. When Michael was in danger, he talked into his comlink watch. He could communicate to K.I.T.T through his watch, and then K.I.T.T would come racing in, crashing through gates and dodging tank artillery, you know, and basically the action and the stunts was the driving force of Knight Rider that inspired so many collectors out there. But also, especially being a symbol of Americana for the time in the 80s, Americans have a fascination with automobiles. You know, you look at movies, you've got the Batmobile, you've got the Back to the Future time machine DeLorean. You've got the Starsky and Hutch police car. Of course, you've got the General Lee, which was sort of a competition with Knight Rider at the time. So Knight Rider was just another one of those shows that took a popular genre and put a new spin on it. But it was also geared towards kids. And kids could identify with K.I.T.T as they wanted to be riding shotgun with Michael Knight, you know, being his partner, riding around this super, super awesome, sleek car that turns heads as it roars down the highway. And what set K.I.T.T apart from your standard Trans Am at the time is it had a red oscillating scanner light in the front that was inspired by Battlestar Galactica. Glen thought about all of these things. How do we make it cool? How do we give it a personality? How do we keep kids' attention? How do we make merchandising is a big thing? You know, you turn around Hot Wheels and Diamond Select Toys, and companies in Japan are making versions of K.I.T.T all the time, every year. This being the upcoming 40th anniversary of Knight Rider is perfect timing to see lots more merchandise coming out. And that leads me to my main point, why did I write this book? Why now? Why put it out now? Because Knight Rider will never be more popular, I think, in my opinion, than this year and the following year. During the 40th anniversary, it's one of those big years where everyone is excited. If you're not a Knight Rider fan, pick up my book. If you're just getting in, if you are a Knight Rider fan, pick up my book. It'll tell you all kinds of facts and data and Q&As and artwork, and I could go on and on and on about it. But if you're just learning about Knight Rider, this book will tell you so many fascinating things and give you a much better answer to your question than my rambling.
No, listen, that was great because you covered so much and you opened up a lot of doorways that I want to go through. I do want to reiterate what you said. I mean, this thing is almost 800 pages and people are going to be like, well, you know, there's TV show companions, episode guides or whatever. Well, this is an episode guide. It's also an extensive interview book with everybody associated with the series, from creator on down through, you know, the artists and the cast. You mentioned Glen Larson several times. What was your relationship like with Glen?
I met Glen in 2005 through his son, James. He worked at a production company, and he invited me to his dad's house for a movie screening of Serenity at the time. Now, the first thought that went through my head is, okay, what theater are we going to? And he says, no, come to my dad's house. We're going to screen it. And then it's like, James Larson. I put two and two together pretty quickly. And I said, is your dad Glen Larson? He's like, yeah, have you heard of him? I said, who hasn't? Like Battlestar, Knight Rider, Fall Guy. Yeah, I'll be there. So my stepdad, Gary, and I, we went up to his place, which used to be in Woodland Hills. And we watched the movie. There was these couches arranged where he'd invite all of his friends and designate who sat where. His couch was elevated in the back like a Dios. It was kind of like the king on his throne. This big screen came down from the ceiling, and there was a movie projection booth built into his living room, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
And James ran the projectors. So when I first met Glen, I was nervous, as any fanboy would be, wearing a Superman shirt and just geeked out to the nines. And he had such a strong regal presence to him that was just intimidating at first. But that was Glen. Like, if he ribbed you or he teased you, it meant he liked you. And once he found out that I knew what Knight Rider was, because see, Glen, like, he knew Knight Rider was popular at the time, but as time went on and the show was canceled in '86, like, a lot of TV shows of that era sort of get forgotten and put by the wayside. And since he was a relatively private person, he didn't really understand the fandom that was out there. So I was kind of like the conduit to show him, like, yes, there's people who still know who you are and still want to see more, still want to see Knight Rider, still want to see more Battlestar. Not the things that Universal did, because, of course, they own the property, but the things that Glen wanted to do before he moved on to the Fall Guy and other creators took over. So that one thing led to another. And when he found out I loved Knight Rider so much, he gave me a box set, season 1 box set, the DVD box set. And over the years, I've gotten tons of signatures on it from cast and crew and other people I've met along the way. But I was able to sort of study the show from other fans, like the Knight Rider historians, Joe Huff and AJ Palmgren, who have their own YouTube channel. They talk about the cars and all that. You should check them out. I was able to get Glen the missing pieces because he walked away from Knight Rider early and Robert Foster took over. He didn't really understand the other directions that other creators went in with Goliath and Carr and Michael Knight's girlfriend, Stevie, played by Catherine Hicklin, these sort of things. So I was able to kind of help him reignite his understanding with the property he started and then incorporate that into his motion picture plans, as he was working on a Knight Rider script at the time. And that's really how our relationship built. So he'd invite me up to movie nights and we'd talk about the script, and sometimes I'd read the script that he was working on and give him notes, and then he'd give me these little tasks to do, like homework. Like he'd always try to find a challenge I couldn't do, and somehow I'd still find a way to do it. So that really impressed him.
Like what? Like, can you give it as an example?
I'll give you one solid story briefly.
All right.
He gave me a challenge while we were driving to an Italian restaurant. See, Glenn wanted to have this sequence in his movie where Michael and Kit have to find the way out of a particle accelerator, a circular particle accelerator that is turning on. And if they don't get out of there, they'll get vaporized. So he said, I want you to explain in one line why this is dangerous and how it works, so that you don't have this long paragraph of exposition. And he's like, there's no way to do it. I said, I can do that. I said, I can do that in probably one line. He says, well, okay, that's your challenge. Come back next week and tell me how to do it in one line. Well, technically, I did it in 2 lines because that's a lot of information to keep. But I pretty much said, well, we're stuck in a particle accelerator. It's like a donut with magnetic focusing rings. But if we can find a way to destabilize them, I think we can get out of here. And he was like, well, you got it in 2 lines. I'll give you credit for trying. You know, that was Glenn. He liked putting a fun, humorous spin, even in his television shows, to lighten the levity of what was going on. He'd throw in some humor, you know, like the cops and their hats blowing off as Kit goes racing by, and these sort of things. So
it sounds like he was teaching you, like he was mentoring you in screenwriting, basically, and how to.
Oh yeah.
That's fascinating. That's awesome.
Well, just on the topic of the movie, I'll show you something a little special for your viewers here.
Okay.
Now, Glenn was very paranoid about his scripts getting leaked to the internet. So he wrote them on a computer disconnected from the internet so they couldn't leak. And then when you reviewed one of his scripts, he would either you'd read it in his office so that the script never left his office, or they would have some kind of tag on there. Like he would know if a movie site like Screen Rant or Comic Book, or whatever, you know, started talking about his script, he would know where it came from. Point I'm making here is he kept everything under lock and key. And then one night he decided to let me take a script home, which was, I believe in his mind, a circle of trust, you know, a sign of trust. So I took it home, I made notes in it, and then I brought it back. And normally you just bring it, he's like, okay, and he'll look through it and go off and do his thing. But he told me to keep this one. And I'm like, why? He says, because you know Knight Rider and I trust you. And if anyone ever found out what's in your script, I'd know that you broke my trust. So I have the privilege of having one of his, and there were many different approaches. Like there wasn't just one script, there was different approaches. I have the privilege of having one of the actual physical scripts here.
Wow.
And I think I'm probably the only one that has one.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to ask you, do you think, you know, that movie has yet to happen, really? I mean, we have, you know, Knight Rider 2000 and all that stuff, but they've made big screen movies out of everything from our childhoods in the 70s, the Starsky and Hutch, you know, Dukes of Hazzard, A-Team, everything you can think of. It's been mined for movies, and those movies never really live up to. No one goes, oh, that was great. You know, they usually almost always fail. Do you think that it is maybe best for Knight Rider that hasn't happened yet, or what's your take on that?
I think the problem with modern adaptions of nostalgic pop culture properties like Dukes of Hazzard, Back to the Future, Battlestar, let's see, Magnum PI, MacGyver, which isn't, I don't think that was 80s, but you get what I'm saying. With pop culture properties in general, even with movies like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, is that Hollywood tries to fix what isn't broken. You know, they have this idea in their head that, oh, well, that worked in the 80s, but that will never work today because of modern times. And we've got to have this messaging in there, these sort of divisive story points and plot points and political messaging and social messaging and these sort of things. I think that there's a genre for that and a time and a place, but in my opinion, it's just my opinion, escapist entertainment will always be popular because we go to the movies to escape reality, not typically to be confronted by it. It's all a matter of taste. But you take a property like Knight Rider, there's certain things that have to be in there in order for it to be Knight Rider. Otherwise, you have something that's Knight Rider in name only. You can't have Superman running around without a Superman suit and call it Superman. Otherwise, it's just called Superman, but it doesn't feel like Superman. So if you're going to alienate your original audience, it's a recipe for disaster. And I see it happen time and time again. And it's one thing that NBC tried to do. They tried to go in their own direction with Knight Rider, Teen Knight Rider, and the soft reboot continuation series that didn't have the same formula that made Knight Rider work. And so if you're going to make a Knight Rider movie, you need to firmly understand the mythology. If you're going to build a new mythology, you need to have the building blocks that fans can recognize. If you're going to do Knight Rider, you need to have things that call back to the original. You can't just make the car a blue Tesla and not have it talk. You know, it has to be black, it has to have a red scanner, has to you know, have a molecular bonded shell or some sort of protection. And the key part that the continuation series didn't understand is that a lone crusader needs to be alone in order to accomplish a mission. You can't have a bunch of people yapping in his ear and stuff on the screen. These are all very important if you want to make Knight Rider work on the big screen. You can have your big bombastic scenes, but you've got to have heart, the character development, and the relationship between Michael and Kit. If you don't have those things there, it's not going to work. And I would implore Spyglass Media Group, who has the movie rights, to keep that in mind. Pick up a copy of my book. If you need to know more about Knight Rider, it's all in there.
Yeah, there you go.
This is your recipe for success.
It is, because you have talked to everybody, and I'm going to set up my next question by talking about some of the people you've interviewed here. So you have interviews. Hopefully this will show up. Maybe this will be clear enough that people can see this, but you talked, so you got interviews with Glen A, Larson. I'm going to skip. I want to hit some of the high notes here. David Hasselhoff, William Daniels, Edward Mulhare. I mean,
let me be clear. Edward Mulhare never did an interview on Knight Rider, but there is a remembering section for him.
There you go. Okay. You have talked to, I mean, I think we'd have an easier time finding people that you didn't talk to than the people that you did. You talked to just about everybody that I can think of that I would want to hear from about theirs. You talked to David Hasselhoff. You were asking him, you know, even what we were kind of talking about with the 2000 stuff. You like, did you feel like you needed to come back just to, basically you're asking him if he felt like he needed to come back to protect his character, and really great stuff. But here's what I want to know. They say don't meet your heroes. You've met a lot of your heroes.
Are you talking about meeting David?
I'm talking about any of the people that you met associated. It sounds like your experiences with Glen were wonderful. Yeah, let's stick with David. How was it to meet David?
I'm thinking about this carefully.
Yeah.
David, as you know, he has the Hoff persona.
Yeah.
And when you meet David Hasselhoff, you more experienced than David than meet him, depending on the circumstances. It's usually pretty brief. It's like, hey, Knight Rider, yeah, let me get an autograph there. Okay, let's take a selfie, and he moves on to the next fan in line. You know.
Yeah.
Unless you're privileged enough to meet him at a show like the Hollywood show, signing autographs at his table. Which in my case, in the book, you'll see a picture of me with David Hasselhoff where he signed the picture twice. I did a photo op with him. And then later I came back and I gave him a nice Knight Rider tribute poster and a replica of the Comlink watch that he wore on the show that my buddy Mark Pewitt made. And so that was the first time I really got to have an extended period of time with David. But usually when you encounter David, it's a very brief time. The very first time I met David, I had about maybe a minute to introduce the book to him, the first Knight Rider companion book from 2008. he did actually pull out his reading glasses and start thumbing through the pages and talking about some of the things. So that was like the big geek boy moment. And I'm standing there petrified because you have this idea in your head of what you're going to say to your heroes. And then he's like standing right there and it's just like a deer in the headlights, you know?
Yeah.
Trying to learn how to separate the fanboy from the professional. This is because celebrities are people too. You know?
Yeah.
If you talk to a celebrity as a person and not see them as this like godlike figure, many times they'll respect you better and you'll stand out more. I always say if you have a chance to meet one of your heroes and you want an autograph or you want a photo op, take that window of opportunity when you have it, but respect boundaries, because the worst a celebrity can say is no, I'm busy, I have to go, whatever. Respect that, but don't let those opportunities pass you by. And I'll give you something very good example of that. So I'll try.
By the way,
to
while
show
you're
this.
talking, I was looking for that picture that you're talking about autograph. I can't find. I know it's in here, but I can't find it.
So when I talk about opportunities, such as getting your book signed, this is what I mean.
Holy cow!
As you can see, I've had quite a few adventures in my 17 years in the Knight Rider hobby, and gathered quite a few signatures. This was,
and you know what I'm noticing too is that some of these people are no longer with us. So you've got
George Barris, for instance. Of course, Glen passed away from cancer.
Oh wow.
I find autographs as a piece of history. I like to collect pieces of history as well as like personal experience.
Well, and you've put that in your book too, because you've got a whole section of these people's signatures.
Yes, and I put that in there for a specific reason. The Hall of Fame autograph guide is to help you, the fans, find authentic autographs from the fakes that are floating around eBay these days, especially Edward Mulhare and some David Hasselhoff signatures. So if you're not sure if an autograph is authentic or not, the guide will help you. But it's definitely in there for research purposes. It's all reprints.
When we talk about this being an exhaustive book, it really is just so thorough. You've even got, because you're a digital artist and you're so thorough in your coverage here. I mean, you've got schematics, you've got profiles of so many vehicles that appeared on the show, the different forms, drone cars. I mean, this is, again, for people that are like, well, you know, it's an episode guide. I can look it up on IMDb. No, you can't. Not this, you can't.
There's also tons of trivia in there you won't find on IMDb for each episode. Yeah. It's a spoiler-free episode guide, so I don't have my own commentaries in there. I let you make your own decisions and experience, especially because the book is written not just for diehard fans, but also new fans of Knight Rider who are just starting to discover it. It is a nearly 40-year-old show. Mm-hmm. But there are parents, you know, who are passing on their love for Knight Rider to their children, to their kids, and the teenagers.
Yeah,
you know, it's very much a generational show. And if you see an 82 Trans Am or just a black Trans Am rolling down the highway, if you're a Knight Rider fan, you're looking for that red scanner in the grill.
Right. Look,
even in movies today, there's all kinds of references. And if you look in the back, there's the Cameo mentions guide. I've made an extensive list of every appearance where Knight Rider is mentioned or K.I.T.T appears on screen in video games, TV shows, and movies.
Yeah. The Simpsons, William Daniels voices K.I.T.T during a presentation of a slideshow to Homer for his birthday. The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, season 10, episode 2, 1998. So thorough.
Tells you where and when to find it.
It sure does. You got the Bible in here, the Knight Rider Bible, the original Bible for the series. That tell people what that is that might not know what a show Bible is.
The Knight Rider Bible was essentially a list of checks and balances to keep episodes consistent from one writer to the next. Here's what you can show. Here's what you can't show. Here's what Michael will do. Here's what Michael won't do. Because remember, Knight Rider was 84 episodes. NBC says 90, but they miscounted some of the 2-hour episodes. So that's a little trivia fact for you. They handed this Bible off from one writer to the next to keep things consistent. So how does Turbo Boost work? One example is never show underneath K.I.T.'s hood to keep the mystery of the turbine jet engine. When Devin talks on screen, if he's talking from the television screen, what you can and can't show. Things Michael will never do, like take an innocent life, because taking an innocent life is the breaking point between what defines a hero and a villain. How you frame things inside the semi, what features from K.I.T. you can mention and what features need to be kept a mystery. There's a certain amount of appeal in keeping things mysterious, keeping viewers engaged to find out more. You know, as K.I.T. went through the show, he had different abilities and upgrades that happened to keep the show fresh and exciting and capture the attention of adults and parents alike. I think, say in the book of Boba Fett, when you start over explaining a backstory, you take away the mystique of a character. Older fans take issue with that, but Knight Rider, with the Knight Rider Bible, was able to keep things consistent. Now I'll contrast this with the 2008 Knight Rider series, which was a soft reboot continuation of the original, starring a Shelby GT 500 Mustang. And they didn't have a Knight Rider Bible. So in some episodes, you'd see guns pop out of one place and then pop out of another. And, you know, these features were only appeared in that episode, but there was no consistency. So when those features were used again in another episode, everything was different. That's why you need to have a series of checks and balances. And the one thing that Glen always stressed when writing about K.I.T. is that as fantastic as K.I.T. was, as great as the features were, K.I.T. still had to have the limitations of being an automobile, which means K.I.T. would never grow wings and turn into an airplane or a boat. K.I.T.'s a car. So K.I.T.'s not going to be driving up a staircase at the top of a roof or driving down the side of a building.
Why did you decide? So you started this journey really almost 2 decades ago. It's been a long time. You wrote, this is the second edition of this book.
17 years.
So why now? Let's get into why you've reprinted this book, why we're getting this book again, and what you say abridged. I would say expanded, but I know you're a stickler for that. Let's talk about why first. Why bring this back to print? Because it had sold well. It was going for a lot of money on the secondhand market too.
Oh, I know, but there's a profound difference between asking price and selling price. But it's flattering all the same. Well, if I'm going to do that, let's start from the beginning.
Okay. This
was the original book, published in 2008. My dad, Gary, and I self-published it. He did most of the typesetting. I did the design, the artwork, and all the research, all the interviews and whatnot. The original book was full color, which is another reason why it's got value to it. My color page. There you go. So it also contained a bunch of artwork, color artwork of the DVDs and the soundtracks, and some pictures of Glen in here on high quality magazine quality paper, 100-pound paper. This book was 680 pages, full color. Dad and I self-published it because in this day and age, no publisher would touch it with that kind of standards of quality. We made 2,100 copies, tried to keep that 2,000 theme going. It recently sold out, I think, in the end of 2020. And some fans who were just discovering it now keep asking me to order more books. And it's like, look, they're all sold. They're all gone. I can't. But there's such a demand out there for Knight Rider still and new updated information. Because remember, that book was 14 years ago. So that's 14 years ago of dated information. Well, a lot can happen in 14 years. So my original thought, because it's called, the new one is called the Abridged Edition, was to create a stripped down ebook version of the original book. Because one of the things you have to realize when it comes to writing books about television properties and things that are owned by other studios is there are rights involved. And when I put out the book in 2008, I had a blanket publishing agreement to put out all the NBC press materials, screen captures, pretty much anything I wanted to do. Well, in 14 years, those terms changed and that licensing changed. And unfortunately, in order to comply with respecting copyrights, I had to take all of that material out. And that's like 600 images. There was some other material in there I edited, or one of the celebrities would come to me and say, hey, I want to redo my Q&A. I think I could do a better job. For instance, Michael Chaffee, who created K.I.T.T, his Q&A in the abridged edition is brand new, restructured, re-edited by him. These sort of things you have to face when you're dealing with a pop culture established property. So the original idea was to put out an ebook, and then I found out how restrictions that are placed on ebooks. For instance, you can't have headers and footers. Images have to be on their own separate page. The text has to be formatted a certain way, the margins and that sort of thing. So it was not possible. I mean, I would have had to re-edit the manuscript into that format to make it work. And so it was ultimately offered to me by Black Prawn Press. And they said, okay, I tell you what, we like your book. We love your first book. We think there's a demand for it. How about you make a new manuscript with all this updated stuff? We'll do it in black and white. We'll put it in print again. And I'm like, wow, okay, cool. Because as a creator and a Knight Rider fan, there were some oversights I made back in those days. Because again, I had never published a book. I knew about Knight Rider, but I wasn't the nuts and bolts guy that knew everything about the show. That all came from reaching out to other diehard fans, like the Knight Rider historians and some of these Knight Rider fan boards and stuff. So I was able to go back and fix some of those oversights and essentially update everything. Because if you get a second chance of doing something that was great and make it even better, I mean, of course you're going to take it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to just take out the pictures, take out some content, and reissue the same book, because what would be the point of that, right? I mean, sure, they can get the information, but why not provide the same information and then provide updates? And then I thought about, well, if I'm a fan, what do I want to see? Well, wouldn't it be cool if I covered K.I.T.T at Universal Studios? Or if I'm a replica builder, what were the fonts that they use on the dash? What were those called? So I started thinking, what does a Knight Rider fan want in a book? And like the first book, I always approach it from, if I was a fan buying this book, what would I want to see? What would I as a fan want to see in a Knight Rider book? The first book was very much like a visual time machine. I didn't want it to be a storybook. There's other Knight Rider books out there that have the narrative focus, like Knight Rider Legacy or 30 Years of a Lone Crusader in His Talking Car, which Joe Huff wrote as well. I wanted to do something different. So I made it very visual because I'm a highly visually driven person. As you can see, there's lots of artwork and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I think that images connect with an audience more than text. You see a picture, it sparks a memory. It sparks a time when you're a kid sitting in front of the TV screen watching an episode on TV. So that's very important to me. So the idea was, okay, if you're doing a new book, how do you bring that back in if you can't use NBC's materials? Well, fortunately, since I've been in the Knight Rider hobby for so long, I've gone to various Knight Rider events like Southern Nights Atlanta in Georgia. There was one in Nevada in Las Vegas for a while. There was one in the UK. So having taken a lot of pictures of these shows and stuff, I was able to incorporate all of that into this. So unlike the book from 2008, which was heavily based on the show, where it came from, how things were designed, people who worked on it, and all of that press material that you recognize. This version is very much more a personal direction, where I have personal photos of me and Glenn meeting Hasselhoff, and images that I've gotten from cast and crew that I interviewed, like Tom Green, who was a producer writer on season 2. And one of my favorite additions in here that you're not going to find anywhere else is an exclusive interview with Stephen E. D'Souza, who wrote the screenplay for Die Hard, Die Hard 2, The Flintstones, Judge Dredd, wrote and directed Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme, The Running Man, Commando. A lot of people don't realize, like, they know him for Die Hard because there's always a debate whether Die Hard's a Christmas movie around Christmas time. But what they may not know is that he was a producer and writer on season 1 of the show, and he created Car, the night automated roving robot, which was the doppelganger, the somewhat evil doppelganger of K.I.T.T in the series. So there's a big interview with him. He tells you how he came up with the idea for the Flag Semi, just this black semi truck with gold stripes that K.I.T.T used to pull into to get repairs on the road, called the Flag Mobile Command Center. Again, pictures of it, details, stats, all in the book. In fact, I make artwork that you'll find in the book that I sell in my store, such as, speaking of the semi,
Ooh,
this is actually printed on real metal. Here's Car. I mentioned Car. Metal, aluminum plate.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I also have photographs, metallic photographs.
Nice.
The metal plates are more of a high-end fine art thing, but I have artwork at all levels for collectors. And you can find all that at nightridercompanion.com.
Okay. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. But yeah, it's just so expanded. I would say revised and expanded. You've taken out black and white photos, but you've added so much, and you've added the thing that other people can't bring to it, which is your experiences and your own involvement in the pursuits of it's almost like it's like the second printing, the second edition became your experiences writing this book, and you have pictures of Glenn Larson with, the first volume. You've got pictures of people holding it up, and that's that's the thing no one else can do. It is a Bible. You've created this Bible for this show, and I love it so much, and I'm so happy that it exists. I'm happy that you have the passion for it, and that you've spent so much of your time working on this.
Well, to answer your question about the abridged edition title,
yeah,
you are correct. Abridged edition does mean shorter. But since I had to take images out and take some of the content out, I consider the abridged edition shorter in some ways and longer than others. Because even though my original plan was to make the book shorter overall, I mean, if you're going to make a Knight Rider book, you should put everything in there with the kitchen sink. So as I started figuring, this is, for an example, if you're going to plan out a book, like, okay, there's what the original sections. Now here's all the new stuff. How do I add more material? And to put that in perspective, as you mentioned earlier, first book, 680 pages. The abridged edition is 784. Mm-hmm. If you have the original book, the abridged edition is the perfect companion to that. You'll get most of the information from the first book, but then you'll get so much more. It was important to me to put personal stories with Glenn in here that I wasn't able to put in the first book, because when I wrote it, I didn't know Glenn that well. I was still getting my feet wet in the fandom. Of course, growing up as a kid, I loved Knight Rider. But as you grow up and the show went off the network, I sort of moved on to other things like Star Wars and G.I. Joe and Saturday morning cartoons and other things that catch your interest. Mm-hmm. But then when I met Glenn in 2005 and I saw his passion and his desire to bring Knight Rider back the way he wanted to do it, not the way that Knight Rider 2000 approached it, not the way that other movie studios like Revolution Studios or whatever wanted to do it. how he wanted to do it, how he intended to bring it back. Even though, as we discussed before, the limitations of rival studios, he wanted to bring it back as a start from scratch, the Genesis story. Because he realized, like, over the years, the original story got kind of tainted by different ideas and different creators. He wanted the Knight Rider to endure, to inspire a new generation, but also respect the original, as we mentioned with Ghostbusters Afterlife, or Sonic the Hedgehog, or Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home, tremendously successful because it respects the original Spider-Man movies while offering something new. There is value in that. It's important to always remember where you started, where your roots began. So when he approached the Knight Rider movie, and this is all explained in the book, in the section, in the Remembering Glen Larson section. There's several stories in there. It's a funny birthday story I have. The Knight Rider Companion was the first book I actually took out to El Mirage Dry Lake, where they filmed the opening credits of the show. That iconic purple desert with the car racing towards the camera and all that. That's in El Mirage Lake in California. There's a story in there about how we took a few kit replicas out there and tried to recreate scenes from the show and pictures. Everything that I experienced as a fan that I want you guys to experience too, even if it's just through pictures or stories. It's not just a rundown of, well, Knight Rider was at this show and blah blah blah, and it's personal stories. It's personal stories with producers and creators and cast and crew, and how they felt when they were filming episodes. There's sections in the episode guide called Cast Reflections, where cast members and guest stars are telling you what they felt when they shot the episode. So you're getting all of these stories and kind of personal interactions, in a certain way. So maybe you've seen Kit versus Car 20 times, but if you pick up my book and you read the episode guide, you might find things about it you didn't know. And that's the beauty of Knight Rider. There's so many episodes, there's so many new things to discover and explore. And collectively, like myself, the Knight Rider historians, other fans, replica builders, replica makers, just people building replicas in Japan, Italy, and South Africa, like Germany, all across the world. All of this knowledge, all of these experiences and memories, we share in this love for this show because it meant so much to us. The idea one man can make a difference resonates from one generation to the next. You asked me earlier what makes Knight Rider popular. It's because it represents hope and optimism, that there's always a better way. Fight for the positive choice, with a positive voice when you can. And I think in some of the shows today, that message is kind of lost.
Well, that's a great place for us to leave it. You've brought us full circle. We've talked about the future of Knight Rider. One fan, look at the difference that you've made. Look at the doors that this has opened for you, that your fandom, that your passion has opened for you. You were on an episode of the Goldbergs, which is recounted in here. People can read about that. What's coming up? Where is this leading you next? What's in the future for you? Where do you want to go from here?
I'm going to be working on a fantasy book series called Aymara, which I've been planning for quite some time, that I sort of set aside to work on the Knight Rider stuff. And I kind of feel like one of the taglines I used when I was teasing that the book was coming was the stuff in the basement. And I wanted to put all of my experiences and regrets and changes and updates and fixes into a new book without any regrets. Like, this is it. This is the stuff in the basement. There's some other things I'm still getting out that's product wise, but as far as like telling my story of what it's like to be in the fandom over the last 17 years and knowing Glenn and meeting celebrities, it's all in there. But it's not just about me. It's about the people that made this show popular and continue to carry on the spirit of Knight Rider today. Not just cast and crew, but fans, fan events. Southern Nights Atlanta is going to be July 22nd and 23rd this year. I'm going to be there talking about the book. There's replica kit cars there. It's run by my buddy Mark Pewitt. Go to southernnightsatlanta.com if you want to find out more about it. It's the only Knight Rider fan event left in the United States. But if you love Knight Rider, it's cast, crew, autograph signing, panels, find all kinds of interesting little facts and data. Go there, have fun. The best part for me is the social aspect. Being able to share your passion with other people who share your passion for it, the television show, or even pop culture. Doesn't just have to be Knight Rider. It can be Star Wars or Star Trek. These things that bring us together, even our differences. The tagline for that I chose for the Knight Rider Companion is "One fan can make a difference." I say one fan because a fan isn't limited to just skin color, gender, identity, age. Anybody can be a fan. You can make a difference by performing one act of random kindness at a time. You can help somebody find their smile and influence and inspire people you may never meet or never speak to. It's important to remember that there's a lot of beauty in the world if you know where to find it. And Knight Rider is something that it transcends all lines. It was apolitical. It didn't push you one way or the other. It's just, hey, here's a car. Here's a dashing hero, Michael Knight. Here's what the car can do. Here's some stunts. Here's some great guest stars and beautiful people like Catherine Hicklin, Rebecca Holden, Ann Turkel, Patricia McPherson. Strong female characters that were around in the 80s, not just now, with depth. And as much as Knight Rider inspired kids and parents, it also inspired women. It tried to hit every tick mark that you can, and I think that's another reason why it resonates so strongly above other TV shows. There are gatherings for 18. There are gatherings for Quantum Leap. There are fan events for Rockford Files or other conventions where star cars appear. You've got the Batmobile, General Lee, Ecto-1. We have a fascination with TV and movie cars, and that will always bring a crowd. And if you're going to talk about the 80s, even Adam F. Goldberg, who created the Goldbergs, realized that kids got to be in the conversation. So I think that we in these difficult times, it's always important to remember to care for your friends and your family, to agree to disagree, and to just find common ground. Be happy, share your passion, share your love. I love when people share my artwork. I love seeing people's replicas. I love seeing toys. I have helped some toy companies with their kit designs to get them more show accurate, like Diamond Select Toys, for instance. Jada Toys. I've given some advice to Hot Wheels on occasion. It's still going to see new Knight Rider stuff coming out, and this is the perfect time to be a Knight Rider fan. Check out my store. Maybe you'll see something you like. I've got posters, and I've got pins and T-shirts, and cool little. This is the Foundation for Law and Government symbol that's on the side of the foundation, side of the semi.
Tell them the site again. Give them the web address again.
It's KnightRiderCompanion.com. That will tell you everything you need to know about the abridged edition. If you want to see some of the pictures that are in here, besides struggling to get them on the camera, there's a nice little trailer at the top of the page. Watch it. give you a little sneak peek. And you can order the book off of KnightRiderCompanion.com, which will take you to Amazon. I can't, because I'm professionally published, it's all handled by a third party. I don't have books at the moment. I can't sign books for you. Maybe if you contact Black Palm Press, they might be able to arrange something. But I am working on getting a very limited supply of my own books, which I will be able to sign and send out to fans. So keep your scanners peeled on KnightRiderCompanion.com for those. But the book is available anywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Walmart, Target, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads. Not just, oh, by the way, not just domestically, but also internationally. If you're an international fan, check out if you have an international Amazon store. Order it there because you won't have to pay the crazy shipping costs that poor international fans have had to deal with. Even though the abridged edition is not in color, because there's certain trade-offs you have to make with any publisher in general. I don't believe that will diminish your enjoyment of the book. And the biggest advantage is because I'm professionally published, you can get this book a lot easier than the first one. You won't be paying crazy prices on Amazon, on eBay from secondary sellers.
Everything you've said, you're just oozing with passion, and this is your passion in book form. I can't recommend it enough. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me about Knight Rider, about what's coming up, and about your love of this show that is alive and well all these years later. So Nick
I'm happy to share the love of Knight Rider with anyone. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at KR Companion. You can find a fan page for the Knight Rider Companion on Facebook. Check out the photo galleries. There's lots of rare photos and stuff in there I've released over the years. If Knight Rider is your thing, check out my page. You won't be disappointed. I just want to clarify one thing for those media sites out there that are going to write articles about Knight Rider, because inevitably you will. George Barris did not create K.I.T.T. K.I.T.T was created and designed by Michael Chaffee. George Barris designed the Super Pursuit Mode kit during season 4, where it had all of these vents and pieces that popped out like a transformer. His company also designed the convertible kit. I've seen many times on these pop culture websites where they incorrectly state that George Barris created K.I.T.T, and I just want to set the record straight on that. Michael Chaffee is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Incredibly humble. He also worked on the Back to the Future DeLorean for the Back to the Future movies with the team of Andy Probert and all the other people behind there. So for my buddy Michael, I just wanted to say that because he really is an amazing talent. He's probably worked on a lot of things that you'll recognize that you may not know, like him and Kevin Pike, who also worked on the Back to the Future movies, worked on Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. So there's a little tip for you.
Wow. Very cool. All right. Well, you've given us something to think about now. We've got facts. This is why you're the man. This is why you're the man who has this is why you wrote the book and we read the book. Nick Nugent, right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Check out the Knight Rider Historians channel on YouTube. Good friends of mine. They own 2 Scream used kit cards. There's only 5 left in the world. No matter what you hear, there's only 5 left in the world. They have 2 of them. And anything and everything you want to know about the cars in particular, like what cars in one scene from one shot to the next, I'm not the guy to talk to. Talk to them. They know everything. I mean, together we have a lot of Knight Rider knowledge. I'm in my 40s now. I wrote this book so I don't have to remember things about Knight Rider 24/7 because the old brain doesn't work as fast as it used to. But check them out.
All right, we'll do it. Thank you, Nick. Guys, thank you for watching, and we'll continue the conversation in the comments below. Hit up those links to go support the places and buy the book. So thanks. Till next time, we will catch you later.
And remember, one fan can make a difference.